Have you ever been in a place where language made all the difference? Bargaining is an essential part of the shopping culture in China. Some years ago, I was in a Chinese shoe shop with my Armenian friend, and we had been advised beforehand not to accept the first price but to negotiate instead. However, my friend made a mistake, and instead of saying it's too expensive, she confidently declared it's too cheap. We couldn't help but laugh, even the shop assistant. Another time, I found myself in a Chinese hospital being pressured to pay for all the medical checkups and all the medical checkups of a motorcyclist who collided with my taxi door as it opened. Later, I found out it wasn't my fault at all, and the taxi driver who wanted to drive away from the accident scene was fully responsible for it. My language skills helped me communicate with the police and manage the situation. For me, language isn't just a tool, it's a way of life. I communicate with my daughter in Armenian. I teach English and Spanish in international and bilingual schools in Poland. I use English and sometimes Polish at home with my husband, and I also communicate with locals in Polish. I also speak Russian and Chinese, though these languages are passive at the moment. And my life is a constant linguistic adventure. Language is a powerful bridge connecting people and cultures, allowing us to move beyond borders, break barriers, and form deeper connections. My experiences with languages have allowed me to see the world through the eyes of someone who can make friends across nationalities, build a culturally diverse family, and raise a bilingual daughter. I grew up in Armenia in a family of teachers, but I wasn't eager to become one, having seen the challenges and financial instability that came with the profession. After finishing school, I applied to Linguistic University in Armenia to study English language and literature, but the department was more focused on pedagogy, though actually a few students actually wanted to become teachers. I dedicated myself fully to study English as my major and Spanish as my second language. I seized every opportunity to practice. I made foreign friends online. I communicated with foreigners I met in the streets of Yerevan, the capital city of Armenia. I guided tourists and showed them the marvelous sights of my country. I remember meeting an American Peace Corps volunteer and a teacher trainer in a teachers' conference who invited me to celebrate my third Thanksgiving. I was so excited. Or hanging out with Erasmus Spanish volunteers with whom I cooked paella and tortilla for the first time. I was eager to observe their behavior, understand their perspective, see their worldview, and not just remain confined within my own culture. I wanted to share my culture at the same time learn about theirs. I did my master's degree in translation studies, and interestingly, most of our lessons of interpretation skills were based on TEDx speeches. Who could have imagined back then that one day I would be standing here in Warsaw making my own speech? Combining teaching and translation and working in both fields in Armenia, I couldn't understand which one I loved more, but one thing was clear. My true passion was language, the bridge that connected me to the world. My ambitious nature led me start PhD. I passed all the exam, but didn't finish writing the thesis, as deep inside I was more inclined to observe the world, to explore it, to see what I could discover, and to challenge myself in unfamiliar places. So I set off for China to teach there. There is so much to share about my life in China. Coming from a collectivistic culture, I found myself in a similar environment, though with many cultural differences. I was living in Zhengzhou, a city with 10 million population. When my parents heard that number, they were terrified. After all, the entire population of Armenia is just 3 million. The best way to integrate is by building relationship with locals. I met amazing people in China who welcomed me warmly and surrounded me with love. One example, in China, people don't eat bread, and it's very hard to find it there, especially salty bread. So when my student's mother learned about it, how much we love bread in Armenia, she baked it for me from time to time. And I made friends at the gym, at bus stops even, at school. People were genuinely interested in foreigners. And I was learning Chinese in my spare time, and that was a huge advantage as it allowed me to connect with locals in daily life. In China, taxis are often shared. So every time I took a shared taxi, the taxi driver and the other passenger would start discussing my appearance, guessing my nationality. The main guess was India. And after a while, I would interrupt and tell them my nationality. And imagine their shocked faces when they realized I had understood everything from the very beginning. Okay. And nevertheless, taxi drivers were my favorite conversation partners to improve my speaking skills, though their questions could be kind of boring, sometimes repeated. One of them was, "Do you have an iPhone?" First time I heard it, I was confused because they don't use the word iPhone, but call it 苹果, which means apple. And other questions were, "Do you have a boyfriend, Chinese boyfriend? Do you like Chinese men? Do you like Chinese food? Where do you come from? Armenia," that's Chinese version of Armenia. And how many people live there? 3 million? Oh my God. But the question that really annoyed me was, "How much money do you earn here?" And once I answered like this, "How much money do you earn? Tell me yours and I will tell you mine." He smiled and dropped the question. My favorite time were the festivals because they gave me opportunity to practice new vocabulary and answer different questions. So I was never afraid of making mistakes because making mistakes is part of learning process, and I always tell the same to my students because learning a language is a never ending journey and we can never speak perfectly from the very beginning. So we should already be proud of ourselves for learning and speaking any language other than our mother tongue. And after all, I could also see how much people appreciated my efforts of learning their language. After a while, I was also surprised to find out I could even argue in Chinese. And here is an incident that had a happy ending. So, with my Armenian friends, we planned a trip to Hainan Island in China. We arrived at midnight, and to our surprise, there was no hot water. And there was no update when we could use the shower. The receptionist didn't seem to care, and after a while, I had to argue with him because he didn't agree to reimburse us. But in the end, he did. He fully reimbursed that. But we had to leave the place and look for another accommodation. And we found a place, but it was closed. The residential area was closed because it was midnight. And when we were about to lose our hope, suddenly we saw a local girl who warmly invited us to spend the night in her place. In the morning, helped us find another apartment in the same building. How can I ever forget those kind-hearted people? As in any place, there are things that can also annoy us. And what annoyed me in China was people all the time taking my photos without asking for my permission. They love doing it and they didn't consider it breaking personal boundaries. But there are two sides to every coin, everywhere. Why am I in Poland? Was it part of my plan? Not really. But life has its own way of surprising us. In China, I met my Polish husband, that great guy standing over there. And during our trip to Thailand and Malaysia, he proposed. I said yes, and then, well, we moved to Poland. I transitioned from a collectivistic culture to individualistic one. And well, it wasn't easy. And in Armenia and in China, spontaneity thrives, whereas in Poland, planning is preferred. I was surprised to find out my husband's family gathered from occasion to occasion or from festival to festival, whereas in Armenia, people drop by unannounced and neighbors might enter without knocking. Unlike Armenia and China, in Poland, personal boundaries are rarely crossed. And one incident that really surprised me was that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were waiting for my permission to hold my newborn daughter, whereas back home she would have been passed from arm to arm with joy, without anyone's permission, of course. And in Poland, in big cities, people usually speak English, so foreigners don't feel the urgent need to learn Polish. But I have noticed when you speak Polish to them, they are more eager to communicate with you, even if they speak English too. I often ask myself, where do I belong? And the truth is, I've left pieces of myself in different parts of the world, and finding myself in one place seems impossible. I still dream of teaching in new countries. as traveling as a tourist is one thing, but living somewhere, truly integrating and learning the language, communicating with locals is when the cultural exchange really happens. I'm sure my journey isn't over yet, as the world is vast, fascinating, and full of wonders. And after a while, we might stop getting goosebumps, but I still believe there are places and people that can welcome us, surprise us, share with us, and learn from us. So go, move, travel, explore, discover, connect. This universe is for all of us, and we are here to make it a better place by connecting, by learning, by sharing, and by embracing the humanity with an open heart. Because, after all, the most important language of all is the one that connects us as human beings. Thank you.